What's going on, y'all? It's your boy Cool Colas here, and you are now tuning into a new video on my channel. But before we get into the topic for today, I would love it if you hit the like button, subscribe button, the share button, and the bell icon so you get notifications for whenever I come out with new content on this channel, and then leave me a comment below. That way I can get back to whatever it is that you had to say. For today's topic, I want to talk about a trope that I came up with myself because of a pattern I've seen. This trope is called the genius to gangster pipeline trope. And the reason why I came up with it was because I just got finished watching the series finale of the show Power Book 2 Ghost, and I have vastly noticed a pattern of this idea of creating a character who is a child prodigy, and then they turn into this big time drug empire lord. And I wanted to kind of describe what I think is happening here and why I think this theme keeps showing up. So if you watch movies like Fresh, you watch TV shows like Power, and then TV shows like Snowfall, this pattern is something that keeps showing itself. You have characters like the Fresh character, you have characters like tariqstpatrick, and you have characters like Franklin Saint. So the reason why I believe that this is a pattern is because I think they're trying to do something a little bit different when it comes to the drug game and showcasing a character that they believe will be a great main character. You know, they typically have this drug lord who is a thug, who doesn't think things through and all this other stuff. And they wanted to kind of go with something a little bit different. They wanted to go with somebody who was a little bit more straight-laced but wanted to get into the game. So what they did a lot of times is they show this character who is essentially a kid, and everyone treats them like a kid. This character typically is not the best fighter at all. Matter of fact, this character in many occasions has gotten his ass whooped. And this character, because of the fact that he is not able to use his fist, he uses his mouthpiece quite a bit. And he uses his brain quite a bit. So usually this character is very intelligent, very analytical. They think things through. They have plans on top of plans. And if they don't have plans, they are master improvisers, and they always have backups. They're usually people who can talk their way out of Desert Storm. Basically, like if there's the worst fucking thing could be going on, and they're going to be able to talk their way out of it because they're so good with their words. So this is the type of character that is embodied in this type of show. And another thing I noticed too is that this character tends to get a lot of women, and the women that they tend to get are usually very beautiful. So I've noticed that, especially if you look at tariqstpatrick's women, Tariq's line of women are better than Ghost's line of women if you really look back. And on top of that too, he kept it all black. So I ain't mad at him. But the point I'm trying to make though is that this type of character tends to have a certain aesthetic that's different than the typical thug or gangster that you would really see, where the gangster usually is, again, like he has a certain mentality, a certain swagger to him that's a little bit different, that shows that he's a product of his environment and that type of thing, and he's a pretty good fighter for the most part. When it comes to, like I said, a tariqstpatrick or a Franklin, that's not necessarily the case. If they don't have a gun in their hand, it's a wrap. They have to have backup. They have to have an extra, again, plan. And they have to be able to, you know, move in a more smart way, a more strategic way. You know, their whole motto is work smarter, not harder. And it's very apparent because you can kind of look at their being. Another thing I noticed too is that these characters are usually really scrawny. They're usually like little dudes. They're not big at all. Like, so it's not even about not being muscular. They're just little dudes. So I think it gives the aesthetic that this character can be easily underestimated because of how small that they are. As a matter of fact, it's very funny because anytime this character tends to get pissed off, people kind of laugh and like they're not taking this character seriously. Matter of fact, both characters, tariqstpatrick and Franklin Saint, had moments in their shows where they threw a random bitch fit, and everybody, the audience members, just kind of laughed because of how they just kind of spazzed out. One time, I think with Franklin, it was where he was talking to his aunt and his uncle, and I think Leon might have been there as well too, and he was talking about how I'm going to correct this like I do every motherfucking thing else. house. And everybody started laughing because nobody was taking him seriously with the way he said it. And then Tariq recently had a little temper tantrum that he threw when he was saying, I'm Tariq fucking St. Patrick, and he was knocking over shelves and shit. And like Davis was just sitting there like, calm down, Tariq. And then all the fans were like looking like, dude, Tariq, we know you're not gonna bust a grape in a fruit fight. I mean, that's how it really goes down. So going back though, so these characters have just a certain aesthetic, and they have a certain thing that people know them for, and they're known to be very smart. And as a matter of fact, they are able to get by because they have a certain influence to their voice and the things that they do in their plans. As a matter of fact, they end up being pretty good leaders. They end up leading groups of people. And even if they fall out with certain people, or, you know, things are like shaky with certain people, somehow they know how to make it where they're able to turn the tides, and they're able to work with the people that they still, you know, that they ended up not getting along with, or maybe even work with enemies to a certain extent. They're just very good at making moves that involve them being able to flip things upside down. So I noticed that this is a thing that they like to pull. And to me, I think it's a way to showcase, again, a different type of character who's supposed to be in that role. But the next thing that I want to talk about is why I think that this trope happens on television and what the overall message is. Also, just like many other depictions that are in this trauma sauce, drug thug culture type of flicks and TV shows, they often try to portray this black man who was recently a boy, this black man who is supposed to be this genius but ended up a gangster, to show the dominant society to a certain extent, hey, any of these Negroes can become thugs. It don't even matter if they're these very proper, eloquent, slick talking Negroes. They too can be somewhat of a danger. And to a certain extent, it also makes it so that they're showcasing that the real problem with what is going on in the hood and what's going on in these gangster-like settings is the fact that you have a bunch of black folks who end up becoming these drug lords, and they're reperpetuating the problems in the community. So in other words, a lot of times when they have these types of movies and flicks, the real enemy is the dominant society, the white supremacists, because they're the ones who create the hoods in the first place. And so what they do in a lot of these movies and TV shows is they showcase the results of the dominant society creating these hoods, putting drugs in them, putting these different businesses that harm the community in them, and all this other stuff. And they try to basically depict that, you know, black people killing each other is the main problem and the reason that is going on. So it's almost like a black on black crime fetish type of thing going on. It's like they're trying to romanticize and make it artistic and say that these Negroes are the problem and they're the reason why they have issues in the community. Not the fact that you've done redlining practices, not the fact that you put drugs into these spaces, not the fact that you have put harmful foods into the community. So all of that just goes by the wayside. We ignore all that stuff that they are responsible for, and we just look at the Negroes who were a product of that happening. There's a pattern that I also notice when it comes to how this trope develops, because this is not something that comes out of nowhere. Essentially, this character was supposed to be somebody who was supposed to be straight-laced. They go off to college, they go off to school, they do well, and they're supposed to do big things. But something goes wrong, and that ends up not being the case. And as a result, they get seen by the audience as somebody who's surprisingly interesting, and as the characters on the show see them, they're somewhat of a disappointment, and they're just trying to do what they do. So one of the reasons, and this is probably the biggest reason why I believe this character gets created, is because their fathers set a poor example for them. So sometimes their father set a poor example for them because of the fact that they're deadbeats, they're not really present, or in some cases, it's because their father is a hypocrite. And so the problem is that the audience as I've said before, when it comes to not understanding the importance of pro-black values, don't get the point of vision. And as a result, they don't have a vision themselves, meaning that they don't see the problem and the errors with the way that these fathers handle their kids. Because what ends up happening is you have this kid who is seemingly someone who is supposed to be spoiled, right? And what they miss is that this spoiled kid is seeing what their father is either doing or not doing. And that ends up either creating angst in that kid or a desire for them to emulate the behavior that they see of the paternal figure that's in their family. Now, when you look at tariqstpatrick, he's the one that I think gets dogpiled on with this more than anyone else. And I think I've said this in a previous video before, but the reason why people like Ghost and hate Tariq is because, one, Tariq killed him, and two, he killed them as a result of what they see as Ghost wanting him to go to school and have a better life and have all the things that he was not able to have. But what really happened, and this is what people miss, and so I said that a lot of you Negroes don't have any vision. The reason why Ghost really was mostly at fault here was because he set a poor example. He was a black man who had a black wife and was cheating on his black wife with a white Latina. And mind you, you can say whatever you want about Tasha not being supportive of his dreams and that hurting his little feelings or whatever the fuck you want to say. But the reality is that he was supposed to set an example for his son, and his son was watching his every single move. So you stepping out on your mom, you stayed with her, and you felt that you had to stay with her most likely because you did so much dirt and she knew what you did. So divorcing her could have meant that all your secrets could have came out. And let's be real, Tasha probably would have, because Tasha was dirty as hell. And as a result, he stayed with her while messing with the white Latina chick. Then when you have a child, they're able to see all this stuff because essentially Tariq, and he showed this in the finale of Power Book 2, essentially he saw that what Ghost was trying to do was have this gangster drug empire life and then also trying to go straight-laced and be a family man at the same time. Now, some of y'all will argue with me and say, well, Ghost was trying to get out of it completely. But the thing is that he had done so much dirt that it kept coming back to him. And to a certain extent, he kept feeding into a lot of these things in order to make moves and do what he needed to do. And as a result, Tariq was seeing him dabble into the drug life while also like trying to dabble into some straight-laced stuff. And the reality is that this also was a problem because of the fact that when it comes down to this whole idea of, you know, one of your progeny in general to be a success, the first thing that they want to point to is go to school, go to college. And we all know that college is not the best way nowadays for black people to be a success for the community, you know. And the reality is that they try to do that because they feel that they're doing something that's honorable. And so Ghost was trying to ride off of that and people were eating it up. But he set a poor example. I mean, he wasn't even accountable for his actions. He also was a hypocrite because he wanted to put Tariq in prison for doing all the stuff that he did while he was able to get away with all the stuff that he had done in his past. You can be mad all you want and say, well, he should have gone to prison and he was in the wrong. But ultimately, it goes back to what I say about Tariq seeing the hypocrisy of the way that his father was moving. He didn't really see him as a man who was keeping his word or at least living a life that made sense. And as a result, Tariq only attached himself to the thing that made the most sense, which was that you built this drug empire. And as a result of you building this drug empire, you have the leverage to be able to get out like you want to. So that's basically what I'm going to do as well. So that's why it ended up being a thing where he ended up becoming a little ass thug. With the Franklin character, his dad also set a poor example as well too. His dad really wasn't there for him, and obviously, you know, his mom plays into that to a good extent as well too. So I'm not discounting that, but his dad created some angst in him. His dad made it so that he felt like he didn't need him, especially when he tried to come back. And see, a lot of times when these dads, they try to come back, they come back with ego. You already know how the old school fathers were. So he came back with kind of a chip on his shoulder. He wasn't really apologetic. He wasn't somebody who said, hey, I should have done more for you. He didn't try to make amends or make things better. Matter of fact, he tried to mooch off of his son a little bit while also finger wagging. And that's another thing too. These older Negroes get to finger wagging at their sons for doing what they were doing, while also forgetting the fact that they conveniently were either bums their damn selves or they were into that life and all this other stuff. And so, when they talk about this doing better thing, that you have to actually be the example that you want your son to see. But the problem is also that these young men who you were supposed to raise, they were boys at a time where they were impressionable and you could have changed that. But once they became men, they got stuck in their ways. And so that's why I say now that Franklin had a certain level of angst for his dad, because his dad basically wasn't about anything. And his dad was also a hypocrite, because even when Franklin, and him were at odds, because Franklin wanted to do this whole drug thing and he was kind of working with the government and all this other stuff, the government or the CIA, that being Teddy, Alton himself was trying to go straight laced, and he was trying to create a nonprofit and he was trying to help the community. And in order for him to get money to create something, a business to help the community, he had to go through Franklin. So that was a way for Franklin to hold money over his father's head. And part of that, again, was angst and the fact that he was upset. He was very angry with his dad. But while this is also going on, Alton was, once again, doing all that finger wagging shit. And it's like, dude, like, you finger wagging, but here you are collecting a check from this drug money that you just don't want me to get. So I want to make it clear, I'm not excusing any of the behavior of any of these genius to gangster pipeline characters, but I'm simply saying that I think people are missing the fact that they are a product of having a poor example, and this was the result. So now, obviously, the onus was on them to become better or do something better, even if they were going to get in the drug game. But regardless, I think that we really need to shine a light on the fact that their fathers did not give them a great example of how they should be. And that's also a lesson for you all in real life, is that when you live a life that is full of hypocrisy, and when you cannot meet up to the standards that you're supposed to as a father and as a man, your kids, specifically your sons, are watching. And as a result, they're going to react to it. And sometimes reacting to it could mean that there is a certain level of conflict between the two of you all, like some anger coming from him. Or it could mean that he wants to end up emulating the stuff that you did, the dirt you did, the drug game, that type of thing. And again, it ain't sweet. But the reality is that they still will want to do it, because that's where they may have seen that a lot of your success had come from. So that's why you got to leave. That's why you got to be able to show the new person that you became, and you know how much you are ashamed of it. Again, in the case of a Ghost, he didn't really seem too ashamed because he still kept dabbling in it. He saw it as a nuisance, but not necessarily something that he was ashamed of. He felt like he was building legit businesses out of the money that he earned, while still, again, dabbling into it and killing folks and doing all this other stuff. And then, the Alton character was just a plain old hypocrite. He couldn't do nothing on his own. He had to mooch off of his kids. So, going back, that's kind of why I believe that this trope ends up existing. So I noticed this as a pattern because I've seen it multiple times now, but it's almost to the point where they put the same characteristics on this type of character. And it's interesting to me because essentially they're an underdog. But it's funny because you watch them go from being an underdog to being somebody who is damn near untouchable. And what they end up showing and what they end up doing is, in order to take this character down, they have to make the characters around this person almost beyond belief. They have to make these characters almost, act out or do something that's erratic, that causes this Empire Lord to be to have to act on impulse, and as a result they make sloppy moves. Like, they have to do some shit like that in order for them to basically not come out on top. And it's usually the people that are closest to him that are around them. If you look at Tariq, he was a lot of times cleaning up the messes of the other characters that were around him. Like, if you look at like the Tejadas or the Braden character, Braden was out there sniffing coke. You know, you had the Tayada characters who were really in it for themselves. You had Effie, who backstabbed him literally about 10,000 times. And then you had, you know, the Franklin Saint character where, you know, everybody around him basically was a snake. You know, you had you had his Aunt Louie, and she was having a feminist moment, and she was trying to basically go against him and all this other stuff. So you had a lot of stuff going on with the other characters that were around him. And then in the thing with Snowfall and Franklin that kind of pissed me off is everybody wanted to act so damn moral at the end. It's like all you Negroes did dirt, and now all y'all are mad at Franklin. Yeah, Franklin did a lot of messed up stuff, so we're not trying to negate that, but y'all all did that as well too. And now all of you all are like, Franklin, this ain't right, man. This ain't right. And the funniest moment to me with that was when he was talking to Leon, and this is when Franklin basically started losing all of his money. And, you know, he really needed some money at the time, and he was trying to go to Leon about it, and Leon didn't really want to give it to him. And he said, Leon said, if I could take it all back, then I would. And he said, and then Franklin was like, all right, well, if, you know, you want to take it all back, just give it all to me. And then Leon was like, nah. And I was like, see, that's the shit I'm talking about. See that hypocrisy shit? They're trying to play up this morality thing because they need to find a way to take down this dude who has proven himself to be untouchable because you all underestimated him for such a long time. Anyway, y'all, that's all I got for this topic. I hope y'all enjoy it, and I hope you all liked what I had to say. Other than that, I hope y'all have a good rest of y'all's day, and I'll talk to you later. Peace.